I thought Thanksgiving dinner was going to be normal. Turkey, stuffing, the usual small talk about work and weather. But when my parents stood up together, holding hands with these weird, serious faces, I knew something was wrong. My dad cleared his throat and said they had an announcement. They were retiring to their beach house in Florida. That part was fine. Then came the bomb. Only one of us 3 kids would stay in the family. The other 2 would be disowned. We had 6 months to prove who was most successful. Winner takes all. Losers get nothing. The silence that followed my father's announcement felt like it lasted forever. I looked at my older brother, Craig, then at my younger sister, Amanda. Craig had this calculating look in his eyes. Amanda's mouth was hanging open. I probably looked just as stupid. My mother, Patricia, sat back down and folded her napkin like she'd just announced what time dessert would be served. My father, Gerald, poured himself more wine. Casual, like they hadn't just dropped a grenade on the dining room table. Craig spoke first. He always did. 35 years old, successful real estate developer, married to Lauren with 2 kids in the suburbs. He straightened his tie and said, "What exactly do you mean by most successful?" Dad swirled his wine. Financial stability, career achievement, contribution to the family legacy. Character, we'll know it when we see it. You have until May 15th. I'm Dante, by the way. 32 years old, middle child, marketing manager at a decent firm in Chicago. I rent a 2-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park. Nothing fancy, but comfortable. I always thought I was doing fine. Apparently not fine enough. Amanda, 28, works in retail at some boutique downtown. She's always struggled with money. Always asking for loans she never quite pays back. She looked terrified. "This is insane," I said. My voice came out louder than I intended. "You can't be serious." Mom's eyes went cold. "We're completely serious. We built a life, a business. Assets worth over $2 million. We're not splitting it 3 ways among children who've been mediocre at best. This is motivation. Prove you deserve it. The family business. 3 hardware stores in the Chicago suburbs. Dad built them from nothing over 40 years. They weren't huge, but they were profitable. Add in the beach house in Florida, their current house in Naperville, investments, savings. Yeah, about $2 million total." Craig leaned back in his chair. "When will you update the will?" "May 15th. 1 name goes on it. The other 2 get nothing and will no longer be considered part of this family." Dad said it like he was discussing the weather forecast. I stood up. "I'm not doing this. This is sick." Mom didn't even look at me. "Then you've already lost." I grabbed my coat and left. Drove back to my apartment in a daze. This couldn't be real. Parents don't do this. Except mine apparently did. My phone buzzed around midnight. Text from Craig. "Don't make this ugly, little brother. You know I've always been the achiever here. Just accept it." Then Amanda. "Can we talk? We should team up against Craig. He's going to destroy us both." I didn't reply to either. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and stared at the ceiling. Maybe this was a test. Maybe they'd call it off after we all refused to participate. Maybe they'd realize how insane this was. 3 days later, that hope died. I went to my parents' house to talk sense into them. Dad answered the door looking annoyed that I'd interrupted his morning. I followed him into his office. "This needs to stop," I said. "You're destroying our family." He sat behind his desk, reading glasses perched on his nose. "We're clarifying priorities. Nothing more. It's cruel. It's honest. Do you know how many entitled, lazy children squander their parents' legacies? I'm ensuring our life's work goes to someone worthy." I tried another angle. "What about Amanda? She can barely pay rent." "You're going to disown your own daughter? Then perhaps she should work harder." That's when I noticed paperwork on his desk. A purchase agreement. I saw Craig's name. "What's that?" Dad smiled. Actually smiled. "Craig came by yesterday. Made an offer to buy the hardware stores. $300,000. Wants to invest in the family legacy," he said. "Expand them." I'm very impressed. My stomach dropped. 3 days. Craig had waited 3 days before making his first major move. He wasn't just participating in this sick competition. He was already 10 steps ahead. I left without another word. Sat in my car in their driveway and realized something that made me feel cold all over. This wasn't a test. This was real, and Craig was playing for keeps. If I didn't fight back, I'd lose everything. Not just money, my entire family, my history, my identity, everything. I pulled out my phone and called my boss, Marshall. That director of marketing position that's opening up. I want to be considered. He sounded surprised. Dante, the hiring process hasn't even started. I know, but I'm ready. I want to put my name in first. Marshall agreed to meet that week. I spent the next 4 days preparing. I had a big presentation coming up for a potential client. A national restaurant chain looking to revamp their entire marketing strategy. If I landed that account, the promotion was basically mine. Amanda showed up at my apartment one evening, crying. She looked genuinely scared. Craig called me, she said, sitting on my couch, mascara running. He said if I don't drop out of the competition, he'll tell Mom and Dad about Denver. Denver? She wouldn't look at me. Something that happened when I lived there 5 years ago. Something I'm not proud of. He somehow found out. I don't know how. I felt a surge of anger. What did you tell him? I said I'd think about it. She grabbed my hand. Dante. He's dangerous. He's not just trying to win. He wants to crush us. I let her stay in my guest room that night. She seemed genuinely terrified. We stayed up late talking about how insane our parents were, how twisted this all was. She helped me rehearse my presentation. She was actually a good audience, asked smart questions, helped me tighten my pitch. For the first time since Thanksgiving, I felt like maybe I wasn't completely alone. The presentation was scheduled for Tuesday morning. The client was sending their entire executive team. This was huge. Marshall made it clear that landing this account would basically guarantee my promotion. I got to the office early, set up the conference room, tested all the technology. My laptop had the presentation loaded and ready. I'd practiced it probably 50 times. The clients arrived. 6 executives in expensive suits. We did introductions, small talk, got coffee. Then it was time. I opened my laptop, clicked on the presentation file. Error message. File corrupted. I clicked again. Same error. My hand started shaking. I tried opening the backup file, also corrupted. Every single file related to the presentation was destroyed. I looked up at 6 expectant faces. Marshall's expression was shifting from confident to confused to angry. I tried to improvise, started talking through the strategy from memory. But without the visuals, without the data, without the carefully crafted pitch, I was just a guy fumbling through ideas. The clients started checking their phones. One of them interrupted me halfway through to say they had another meeting. They left after 20 minutes. Marshall asked me to stay. What the hell happened? I don't know. The files were fine yesterday. I tested everything. This was our biggest pitch of the quarter. They flew in from California for this. Do you understand how bad this makes us look? I had no explanation. Marshall told me to take the rest of the day off. His tone made it clear that day off meant something worse. I drove home in shock. Sat in my apartment, staring at my laptop. How did this happen? I'd checked everything. The files were perfect last night. Then I heard movement in the guest room. Amanda, still staying with me. I walked in. She was packing her things, wouldn't look at me. Amanda? She started crying immediately. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. The truth hit me like a truck. You did this. She nodded, sobbing. Craig paid me $5,000. He told me exactly what to do. How to access your laptop while you were sleeping. How to corrupt the files. I needed the money, Dante. I'm 3 months behind on rent. My landlord was going to evict me. I couldn't speak. My own sister. I was never going to win anyway, she said, stuffing clothes into her bag. I'm the weakest one. Mom and Dad know it. At least this way I get something out of it. Craig promised me more if I keep helping him. Get out. She left. I sat on the couch, too stunned to feel anything. Then my phone rang. Marshall. Dante, we need to talk. I just received an email. An anonymous email with attachments. Someone sent me what looks like evidence that you've been falsifying expense reports for the past 2 years. That's not true. The evidence is pretty compelling. Receipts, expense claims, dates. It's all here. I'm going to need you to come in tomorrow morning to discuss this. He hung up. I pulled up the email on my phone. It was detailed, thorough, completely fabricated but convincing enough to look real. Craig hadn't just sabotaged my presentation. He'd planted evidence to destroy my entire career. By Wednesday afternoon, I was fired. By Friday, I was getting rejection letters from every job I applied to. Somehow, word had spread fast. No one wanted to touch me. I'd gone from promising promotion to unemployed and branded as a fraud in less than a week. Craig had outplayed me completely, and the competition had 3.5 months left to go. Being unemployed feels different when it's not by choice. I'd wake up at 7:30 out of habit. Then remember, I had nowhere to go. The silence in my apartment became oppressive. I'd sit at my kitchen table with coffee, scrolling through job sites, knowing it was pointless. My name was poison. I burned through my savings fast. Rent in Lincoln Park isn't cheap. I had maybe 3 months of runway before I'd be in serious trouble. Craig texted me once. Heard about your job situation. Tough break. Maybe you should reconsider your options. I didn't reply. The family competition felt surreal now. I was supposed to be proving my success, while I couldn't even pay my bills. Meanwhile, Craig was buying the family business and expanding it. Amanda had apparently gotten her life together with Craig's bribe money. I needed a plan. Fast. I decided to do something risky. Use what little savings I had left to start my own consulting business. If I could show entrepreneurial drive, launch something successful quickly, maybe I could still compete. It was desperate, but I had no other options. I registered an LLC, built a simple website, reached out to every professional contact I had left. My pitch was simple: affordable marketing. Consulting for small businesses that couldn't afford big agencies. The first week, nothing. The second week, I landed a small bakery in Andersonville. They needed help with their social media. It paid $800. Not much, but it was something. Then I got a gym in Wicker Park. They needed a complete brand refresh. $1,500. Then a local coffee roaster. $2,000. By March, I had 3 clients and was making enough to almost cover my expenses. I was working 18-hour days, but I felt like maybe I could pull this off. The big break came when I connected with the owner of a small gym chain, 4 locations across Chicago. They were expanding and needed comprehensive marketing strategy. This could be a $20,000 contract. Real money. Proof of concept. I met with the owner, a guy named Derek. He loved my ideas. We shook hands. He said he'd send the contract over by end of week. My parents scheduled another family dinner for Sunday. They wanted to check everyone's progress. It was early March, 2.5 months until the final decision. I showed up feeling cautiously optimistic. I had a real business now. Clients, revenue. I wasn't Craig-level successful yet, but I was building something. Craig arrived in a new car. Expensive. He brought Lauren and the kids, playing the family man angle. He announced at dinner that he wasn't just buying the hardware stores. He'd already opened a new location in Schaumburg. He had architectural drawings, business projections. Our parents were practically glowing. Amanda brought her new boyfriend, Travis. He was a lawyer, apparently. She talked about her new job at some upscale boutique, how stable everything was now. She didn't look at me once. When it was my turn, I explained my consulting business. Dad raised his eyebrows. You just started this? 2 months ago. Mom frowned. Sounds desperate. It's entrepreneurial, I countered. Craig smiled. That fake, condescending smile. Good for you, little brother. Really? Takes courage to start over. After everything fell apart, I wanted to throw my wine glass at him. After dinner, Craig followed me outside. I was getting in my car when he knocked on the window. I rolled it down. He leaned in, all casual friendliness that didn't reach his eyes. I'm going to make you an offer, he said. Drop out now. Stop trying. I'll hire you at one of my companies. Good salary. 60,000 a year. Benefits. You'll be comfortable. You can stop this humiliating scramble. And if I don't? His smile disappeared. Then I'll destroy you completely. What happened to your job? That was just the beginning. I can make your life a living hell, Dante. I've got resources, connections, time. You've got nothing. Take the deal. I started my car. Go to hell, Craig. He straightened up, shrugged. Your funeral. I drove away, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Monday morning, Derek from the gym chain called me. Dante, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to pass on the contract. My stomach dropped. Why? I thought we were moving forward. Long pause. Look, someone contacted us. Said you're under investigation for fraud. Said there are legal issues. We can't risk our company's reputation associating with that. I'm sure it's not true, but we just can't take the chance. Derek, that's completely false. Someone's trying to sabotage me. I'm sorry, man. Good luck with everything. He hung up. I immediately called my other clients. The coffee roaster answered, sounded uncomfortable. Yeah, we actually got a similar call. We're going to have to end our contract early. We'll pay you for work completed, but that's it. The gym in Wicker Park didn't answer. Sent me an email an hour later terminating our agreement. The bakery owner, sweet woman in her 60s, at least had the decency to sound apologetic. Someone called and said, "You're a con artist." Said you scammed your previous employer. I don't know what to believe, honey, but I can't risk it. By Tuesday afternoon, I had 0 clients. My entire business, everything I'd built in 2 months, was gone. I knew it was Craig. He'd systematically called every single client. Planted the same story. Poisoned every opportunity. I was now completely broke, with no income, no prospects, and the competition ended in 6 weeks. I sat in my apartment that night, looking at my bank account. $4,000 left. Rent was due in 2 weeks. $2,200. That would leave me with $1,800. Maybe 6 weeks of food and utilities. I opened a bottle of whiskey, and didn't stop drinking until the room spun. The eviction notice came on a Tuesday. 30 days to vacate. I hadn't paid March rent, and April was coming. My landlord had been patient, but there's only so long you can push that. I was officially going under. I'd applied to probably 200 jobs. Marketing positions, consulting gigs, even retail management. Nothing. The false fraud accusations had spread through professional networks somehow. I was unhireable. I started drinking too much. Sleeping until noon. Not showering for days. The depression was physical. Like gravity had increased. And everything required twice the effort. My high school friend Jake called. We'd played baseball together, stayed in touch over the years. He worked as an investigative journalist for the Chicago Tribune. Dante, man, I heard about your family situation. The competition thing. That's insane. Word had gotten around through mutual friends. Chicago's a big city, but small networks. Yeah, it's been great, I said, not bothering to hide the bitterness. Look, this sounds like a story. Wealthy parents forcing adult children to compete for inheritance? That's newsworthy. I want to write about it. I almost hung up. But then, something occurred to me. What if exposing this whole toxic mess publicly was the answer? What if public pressure could make my parents see how insane they were being? I met Jake at a coffee shop in Logan Square. I told him everything. The Thanksgiving announcement, Craig's sabotage, Amanda's betrayal, losing my job and my business, the false accusations. I poured it all out. Jake took notes, eyes wide. This is even crazier than I thought. But I need to interview everyone for balance. Your parents, Craig, Amanda. Will they talk to me? Probably not. I'll try anyway. Good journalism requires multiple perspectives. I didn't care anymore. Maybe burning it all down was the only option left. Meanwhile, I needed money immediately. I swallowed my pride and took a job at a warehouse in Cicero. Night shift, loading trucks. $10 an hour. It was brutal, manual labor, and I hadn't done physical work like that since high school. My back ached constantly, my hands blistered, but it kept me eating. Jake's article came out 3 weeks later. Front page of the Tribune's Sunday edition. The headline, Wealthy Naperville Couple Forces Adult Children to Compete for Inheritance. It was detailed. Jake had interviewed everyone. My parents declined comment, but their names and photos were right there. Craig gave a quote about how he respected their decision to reward merit. Amanda talked about how the competition had motivated her to improve her life. I came across as the bitter, struggling middle child who couldn't handle the pressure. The article went viral. Local news picked it up. Then, national outlets, CNN, ran a segment. We became the toxic inheritance family. I thought this would help. I thought public shame would make my parents stop. Instead, it made everything catastrophically worse. My father called me at 2 in the morning. I'd never heard him that angry. You went to the press? You aired our private family business to the entire country? You were destroying us. Someone had to stop it. You've embarrassed this family beyond repair. The hardware stores are getting negative reviews from people who read that article. Customers are boycotting us. You've damaged the business your grandfather built. Maybe you shouldn't have started this insane competition. You're out, Dante. You've already lost. Consider yourself disowned as of this moment. You'll get nothing. Don't contact us again. He hung up. I sat there, phone in my hand, realizing what I'd done. The article didn't stop the competition. It just disqualified me early. And it got worse. Employers definitely weren't hiring me now. I was the guy from the inheritance scandal. HR departments saw my name and passed immediately. Nobody wants that kind of publicity attached to their company. I couldn't find an apartment when my eviction went through. Landlords Googled me and said no. I was too much risk, too much drama. Craig sent me one text. Thanks for making me look like the dignified one. You played yourself. Amanda's quote in the article about me struggling with personal issues made me look unstable. I tried to expose the madness, and instead destroyed my own reputation permanently. By mid-April, I'd hit absolute rock bottom. I moved into Jake's spare room. He felt guilty about the article, offered to let me stay until I got back on my feet. I was sleeping on an air mattress, working nights at the warehouse, coming home exhausted and hopeless. The family decision was in 3 weeks. Craig had obviously won. I'd been formally disowned. Amanda was playing the reformed daughter angle. I'd lost everything. One night, unable to sleep, I scrolled through old photos on my phone. Family stuff from years ago. Birthdays, holidays, normal times. I stopped on one photo from about 10 years back. Dad at the original hardware store, smiling with his arm around a woman I didn't recognize. She was pretty, blonde, maybe mid-30s at the time. His arm was around her waist. Intimate. Who was she? I zoomed in. They looked close. Too close. I showed the photo to Jake the next morning. Can you figure out who this woman is? Jake, being a journalist, knew how to find people. He ran facial recognition, checked social media, did whatever reporters do. 2 days later, he had a name. Diane Harper. She lives in Gary, Indiana now. Used to manage one of your dad's hardware stores about 15 years ago. I borrowed Jake's car and drove to Gary. Found Diane's address through public records. A modest house in a working-class neighborhood. I knocked. She answered. Looked at me confused for a second. Then her face went pale. You're Gerald's son. Dante. Can we talk? She let me in, clearly nervous. We sat in her small living room. She made coffee with shaking hands. Why are you here? I showed her the photo. This is you with my dad. 10 years ago, I want to know who you are to him. She stared at the photo for a long time. Then she started crying. We had an affair. 3 years. I managed the Lombard store. Your father and I got close. It was wrong. I knew he was married. I was lonely. He was charming. And it just happened. I felt numb. My mother doesn't know? No. At least she didn't back then. I don't know about now. What happened? Diane wiped her eyes. I got pregnant. Your father panicked. He gave me $50,000 to leave town, never contact him or the family, Never tell anyone. I took it. I needed it. I moved to Indiana, had the baby, raised him alone. The room tilted. I have a half-brother? She nodded. Caleb. He's 14 now. Smart kid. Loves basketball. Doesn't know who his father really is. Birth certificate lists father as unknown. She showed me documents. Bank transfers from my father's personal account to hers. $50,000. Transferred in chunks. To avoid attention. Emails from my dad begging her to stay quiet, promising he'd support her financially. Why are you telling me this? Diane looked at me with something like pity. I saw the article. About your family and that horrible competition. Your father is making you kids destroy each other over money? After what he did to me? After he abandoned his own child? He's a hypocrite. I stayed quiet all these years because I needed the money for Caleb. But I've always resented it. And seeing what he's doing to you made me angry. I sat there processing. My father had a secret child. My mother had no idea. This was nuclear-level family destruction if it came out. Does he still send you money? Every month. $2,500. For 14 years now. Always from the hardware store's business account. Marked as consultant fees. My brain kicked into gear. He's embezzling from the family business? She nodded slowly. I have every transaction. 14 years of monthly payments. About $420,000 total. She showed me bank records on her laptop. Years of deposits. All from the hardware store's business account. All marked as consulting fees to a company that didn't exist. My father had been stealing from the family business for 14 years to pay off his mistress and support his illegitimate child. This was massive. This was fraud. This was money that should have gone into the business that Craig was trying to buy. I had leverage, real leverage, nuclear leverage. But using it meant destroying my parents' marriage, exposing a 14-year-old kid's existence, ruining my mother's life, possibly sending my father to prison for embezzlement. Could I do that? Diane seemed to read my thoughts. I kept quiet to protect Caleb. But he's asking questions now. About his father. About why we've always struggled when my mystery consultant income should have been enough. I'm tired of lying. If you need this information to fight back against what they're doing to you, use it. Just please don't hurt Caleb. I drove back to Chicago in a daze. I had a grenade in my hands, but throwing it would cause massive collateral damage. The family decision was in 2 weeks. Craig was winning. I'd been disowned. This was my only weapon left. I spent 3 days sitting in Jake's spare room, staring at the documents Diane had given me. Bank statements, emails, birth certificate, proof of my father's 14-year secret. Part of me wanted to just walk away. Let Craig win. Move on with my life somewhere else. Start over where nobody knew about the toxic inheritance family. But I couldn't. The anger was too deep. Not just anger at Craig's sabotage or Amanda's betrayal. Anger at my parents for creating this whole sick competition in the first place. For reducing their children to competitors. For making love conditional on success. And now finding out my father was a massive hypocrite who'd been stealing from his own business to cover up an affair. While judging us for not being successful enough, the rage kept me awake at night. Jake noticed I was spiraling. You need to talk to someone, man. Maybe a therapist. I need to end this. End what? I showed him the documents. Watched his eyes go wide. Holy hell. This is huge, Dante. Your dad could go to prison for embezzlement. Your mom will divorce him. This will destroy them. They destroyed us first. Jake looked at me seriously. You sure you want to do this? There's no coming back from it. And that kid, Caleb, he didn't do anything wrong. His life will blow up too. I know. But what choice did I have? Let Craig win through sabotage and lies. Let my parents disown me after orchestrating this entire toxic game? Lose everything without fighting back? The family decision was in 10 days. I called my mother. She answered coldly. What do you want, Dante? I need to talk to you. In person. It's important. Your father and I have nothing to say to you. You embarrassed this family. Mom, please. Just coffee. 1 hour. Long silence. Then, fine. Wednesday, 10 o'clock. Starbucks, in Naperville. We met at a busy Starbucks off Route 59. She looked older than I remembered. tired. The publicity from the article had taken a toll. I sat across from her. She didn't order anything, just folded her hands and waited. "Do you really think this competition was a good idea?" I asked. "Look what it's done to us. Craig and I hate each other. Amanda sold me out. I've lost everything. Was this worth it?" Her face stayed hard. It revealed your true characters. Craig is a fighter. You're a quitter. That's why he's winning. That's why he deserves the inheritance. What about what Dad deserves? She frowned. What's that supposed to mean? I almost told her right there. Almost showed her the documents. But something stopped me. Maybe the last shred of mercy I had left. Never mind. I left the coffee shop realizing my mother was fully complicit in this cruelty. She wasn't a victim of my father's scheme. She was an equal partner. They decided together to make us compete, to make love conditional, to disown 2 of their children. They deserved what was coming. I called my father that night. "I need to schedule a family meeting. All 5 of us. It's urgent. We're done with you, Dante. This isn't about the competition. This is about something bigger. Trust me. You want to hear this. If you don't, I'll take what I know to the police and the media." That got his attention. "What are you talking about?" "Family meeting. This Saturday. Your house. 7 o'clock. Get Craig and Amanda there too." He agreed, probably out of curiosity and fear. Saturday came. I'd barely slept all week. I kept rehearsing what I'd say. How I'd drop the bomb. Part of me hoped I'd chicken out. I didn't. Jake let me borrow his car. I drove to Naperville with a folder of documents on the passenger seat. My hands shook the entire drive. I arrived at 7 exactly. Craig's expensive car was in the driveway. Amanda's beat-up Honda, too. They were all waiting for me. I walked in. Everyone was in the living room. Craig looked annoyed. Amanda looked confused. Mom looked worried. Dad looked angry. "This better be important," Dad said. I sat down in the armchair across from them. Put the folder on my lap. "I want to talk about what success really means in this family." Craig rolled his eyes. "If this is another one of your pity parties about how unfair everything is, I'm leaving." "It's not." I opened the folder. "It's about Dad." My father's expression changed. Just slightly. A flicker of fear. I pulled out the photo. The one from 10 years ago. Dad with Diane. "Who's this woman, Dad?" Mom leaned forward. "Who is that?" Dad's face went pale. "Where did you get that?" "Her name is Diane Harper. She managed the Lombard store about 15 years ago. You had an affair with her for 3 years." Mom had no idea. The room exploded. Mom stood up, grabbed the photo. "Gerald, is this true?" Dad's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Amanda whispered, "Oh my God." Craig's expression shifted from annoyed to intensely focused. I kept going. Had to finish before I lost my nerve. The affair produced a child, a son named Caleb. He's 14 years old now. Your son, Dad. My half-brother. Mom made a sound like she'd been punched in the stomach. I pulled out more documents. Dad paid Diane $50,000 to leave town and stay quiet. But that wasn't all. He's been sending her $2,500 every month for 14 years. About $420,000 total. Dad found his voice. "Dante, stop." The money came from the hardware store's business account, marked as consultant fees. But there was no consulting. It was embezzlement. 14 years of stealing from the family business to cover up his secret child. Craig suddenly looked very interested. "You embezzled $400,000 from the business I'm trying to buy?" The implications hit everyone at different times. Mom was crying, staring at my father like she'd never seen him before. Amanda just sat there, shocked, silent. Craig stood up, furious. "You've been stealing from the business? That changes everything. The valuation, the purchase agreement, all of it. That money should have gone back into the stores, into expansion, into profits. You fraudulently inflated expenses to hide your affair." Dad finally stood. "Dante, you have no idea what you've done." "I know exactly what I've done. You wanted to judge us on character and success? Let's talk about your character. You cheated on Mom. You abandoned your own son. You stole from your own business. And then you had the nerve to make us compete for your approval?" Dad's face went red. "You smug little hypocrite. You think you're so righteous? Let me tell you something. And then he said something I wasn't expecting. I know what Craig did to you. The sabotage, the false accusations, all of it. Craig froze. Dad turned to him. You think I'm stupid? I hired a private investigator in December. I've been monitoring all three of you this entire time. I have evidence of everything Craig did. The bribe to Amanda, the corrupted presentation files, the calls to Dante's clients, all of it. Craig's confident facade cracked. You've been spying on us? I was testing you. All of you. Character, remember? And you all failed spectacularly. He turned to Amanda. You sold out your brother for $5,000. Then to Craig. You sabotaged your own brother's career. Destroyed his business. All to win a competition. Then to me. And you just publicly exposed family secrets that will destroy your mother and reveal a child who's lived peacefully in obscurity. Congratulations, you're all morally bankrupt. Mom stood up, still crying. How dare you lecture anyone about morality? You had an affair. You have another son. 14 years of lies, Gerald. Dad's expression changed. Almost sad. I made mistakes. But I took responsibility. I've supported Caleb. His entire life. I never abandoned him. You abandoned your marriage, Mom screamed. Then Dad dropped his own bomb. I'm not giving the inheritance to any of you. Not Craig. Not Amanda. Not Dante. You all proved you're exactly what I feared. Entitled, petty, willing to destroy each other over money. He looked at each of us in turn. I'm leaving everything to Caleb. My youngest son. At least he's innocent in all this. Silence. Complete, crushing silence. Craig exploded. You can't do that. I've invested in those stores. I have a contract. A contract based on fraudulent financial information. Good luck enforcing it. Amanda started crying. So I get nothing? After everything? You sold out your brother. What did you expect? They both turned to me. Mom looked at me with pure hatred. This is your fault. You couldn't just lose quietly. You had to destroy everything. I sat there, numb. I'd thought exposing Dad would somehow make me win. Instead, I'd blown up the entire family and still lost. Dad looked at me with something like pity. The competition was meant to reveal character. You revealed yours. Self-destructive and vindictive. Not what I wanted to leave my legacy to. Mom grabbed her purse. I'm leaving. Don't follow me, Gerald. We're done. My lawyer will contact you. She walked out. The door slammed. Craig pointed at Dad. I'm suing you. For fraud, for the embezzlement, all of it. You stole from your own business. He left too. Amanda stood up, makeup smeared, eyes red. I can't believe this. You're all insane. Every single one of you. She left. Just me and Dad in the living room. The house suddenly felt enormous and empty. You destroyed this family, Dad said quietly. I hope it was worth it. You destroyed it first. The moment you made us compete. I gave you a chance to prove yourselves. You chose destruction. I stood up. So did you. 14 years ago when you cheated on Mom, I walked out into the night. Got in Jake's car. Drove back to Chicago in complete silence, brain empty. I detonated the nuclear option. Destroyed my parents' marriage. Exposed a secret child. Eliminated myself from the inheritance. Made myself look vindictive and unstable to everyone. And I'd still lost. I had nothing. No family, no money, no prospects. Just a minimum wage warehouse job and an air mattress in someone's spare room. I'd hit absolute rock bottom, and I realized with perfect clarity that it was my own fault. 2 months passed in a blur. I stopped checking the news. Stopped looking at my phone. Worked nights at the warehouse. Came home exhausted. Slept. During the day. Jake tried to get me to talk about things. I had nothing to say. My parents' divorce was moving forward. Craig was actually suing Dad over the hardware store business. Amanda moved to Los Angeles, apparently. I only knew because Jake mentioned it. The family imploded exactly like I'd known it would. I just didn't expect to feel this empty about it. Late May, sitting in Jake's apartment on a Sunday afternoon, I scrolled through old photos on my phone. Not sure why. Maybe just torturing myself with memories of when things were normal. I lingered on that photo again. Dad with Diane. The one that started everything. Then I noticed something I hadn't before. In the background of the photo, slightly out of focus, was a kid. Maybe 3 or 4 years old. Just visible at the edge of the frame. I zoomed in. Definitely a small child. Which didn't make sense because this photo was from 10 years ago, and Caleb was 14 now. Unless the photo was older than I thought. Or there was another kid around. I showed it to Jake. Can you figure out anything else about this photo? Like when it was actually taken? Jake, having nothing better to do, ran it through some software. Checked metadata. Did his journalist detective work. This photo is from 15 years ago, not 10. The metadata says February 2010, 15 years. Which meant Diane was already pregnant when this was taken. Or got pregnant shortly after. Caleb was 14 now. The timeline checked out. I found myself thinking about Caleb, my half-brother. A kid who'd lived his whole life not knowing his father's real identity. A kid who was about to inherit $2 million from a man he'd never met. How messed up was that? I asked Jake if he could find Diane's contact information. He raised an eyebrow but got me a phone number. I called her on a Tuesday evening. She answered cautiously. Hello? Diane, this is Dante, Gerald's son. We met a few months ago. Long pause. I saw the news. About everything that happened. I'm so sorry. I didn't think it would explode like that. Not your fault. I made my own choices. But I was hoping we could meet again. I want to talk about Caleb. Another pause. Why? He's my brother. I'd like to meet him, if that's okay with you. We agreed to meet at the same coffee shop in Gary that Saturday. I borrowed Jake's car again. Made the drive to Indiana. Diane was already there when I arrived. And she'd brought Caleb with her. He was tall for 14, gangly, with shaggy brown hair and my father's eyes. Wearing a basketball jersey and sneakers, he looked nervous. We sat at a corner table. Caleb kept glancing at me, then away. Caleb, this is Dante, your half-brother, Diane said gently. Caleb nodded. Mom told me everything. About my dad. About the inheritance. About all of it. His voice was deeper than I expected, on the edge of changing from kid to young man. How are you handling it? I asked. He shrugged. It's weird. I always wondered about my dad. Mom told me he wasn't around, that it was complicated. Finding out he's some rich guy with another family who made you guys compete for his money? That's pretty messed up. I almost laughed. This kid got it immediately. Yeah, it's messed up. Mom said he's leaving me everything. Like $2 million or something. That's what he said. Caleb looked at his mother, then at me. I don't want it. Diane touched his hand. Caleb, we talked about this. I know, but I don't. This guy, Gerald, he's not my dad. He's just someone who sent money. Real dads stick around. He treated you guys like garbage. Why would I want his money? Out of the mouths of teenagers. This 14-year-old kid had more clarity than any of us adults. Diane explained. Gerald called me after everything fell apart. He told me about his decision to leave Caleb the inheritance. He wanted to meet Caleb, start building a relationship. What did you say? I told him I'd think about it, talk to Caleb. But honestly, after seeing what he put you and your siblings through, I don't want that kind of person in my son's life. Caleb added. Plus, his business is falling apart anyway. Mom looked into it. That lawsuit from your brother Craig is serious. The hardware stores might go bankrupt. The inheritance might not even exist by the time everything is settled. I sat back. I hadn't thought about that. Craig's lawsuit was probably draining legal fees. The publicity from the article had hurt the store's business. The embezzlement scandal was public record now. The whole empire my grandfather and father built was crumbling. We talked for 2 hours. Caleb was a good kid, smart, thoughtful, into science and basketball. He talked about wanting to study engineering. Diane worked as an office manager now, made decent money. They lived simply but happily. They didn't need my father's toxic money. They'd built a life without him. Before I left, Caleb said something that stuck with me. I just wanted to meet you. You're my brother, right? Even if everything else is messed up, that's something. I felt something crack open inside my chest. This kid, who owed me nothing, who I'd accidentally dragged into this nightmare, just wanted family. Real family. Not conditional, not transactional, just connection. Yeah, I managed. That's something. Diane walked me to my car. Thank you for coming. I think Caleb needed to see that not everyone in Gerald's family is like him. I'm not exactly a role model. I kind of destroyed everything. She smiled sadly. You exposed the truth. Sometimes that's messy. But it needed to come out. My son deserved to know where he came from, even if it's complicated. Driving back to Chicago, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not quite hope, but maybe the beginning of it. I called Jake from the road. Can you help me figure something out? What? I need to write something. An article. A follow-up to that first one. About what I learned. Jake was quiet for a second. You sure? More publicity might not help. It's not about publicity. I need to process this. And maybe someone else going through something similar needs to hear it. Okay, let's work on it together. We spent the next week crafting an article. Not for revenge this time, not to expose anyone. Just honest reflection about toxic family dynamics, conditional love. What happens when you turn relationships into competitions? I wrote about meeting Caleb. About how a 14-year-old kid understood something all us adults missed, that love can't be earned through success or competition. It's either given freely or it's not really love at all. I wrote about losing everything and realizing the thing I'd been fighting for, my parents' approval, had always been a mirage. They weren't capable of the kind of love I'd needed. And that wasn't my failure, it was theirs. Jake helped me shape it, kept it from being too bitter or self-pitying, focused on the lesson rather than the blame. The Tribune published it in late June. The headline was simple. I won nothing and lost everything, and I'm better for it. It was vulnerable in a way the first article wasn't. Talked about my mistakes, my choices, how revenge had backfired, but also about finding something real in the wreckage. A relationship with a brother I didn't know I had. Clarity about what actually matters. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of emails and messages. People sharing their own stories of toxic families, conditional love, inheritance battles that destroyed relationships. Parents who regretted playing favorites. Siblings who reconciled after years of competition. It resonated with people in a way I didn't expect. A week after publication, I got an email from a marketing agency in New York. Small firm, boutique, focused on authentic brand storytelling. The email said, "We read your article. We think someone who can write that honestly about human experience would be valuable in our work. We help brands find their authentic voice." Interested in talking? I stared at the email for 10 minutes. Was this real? I called them. It was real. They wanted to hire me. Not despite the scandal, but partly because of it. They valued vulnerability and honesty in storytelling. Thought I could help their clients connect with audiences on a deeper level. The salary was $70,000. More than I'd been making at my old job. Full benefits. Start date in August. I accepted before I could overthink it. I called Diane to tell her. She was happy for me. Said Caleb wanted to know if I could visit again soon. Maybe take him to a Cubs game. I said absolutely. 6 weeks later, I moved to New York. Fresh start. New city where nobody knew me as the guy from the inheritance scandal. Jake helped me pack. Drove me to the airport. Proud of you, man, he said at security. You could have stayed bitter. You chose something different. In New York, I found a small apartment in Astoria. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Started the new job. Turned out I was good at it. Helping brands tell honest stories. Using the same vulnerability I'd learned through pain. 3 months into the job, I got a call from Amanda. First time we'd spoken since the explosion. She was in therapy, working through a lot. She apologized for betraying me. Really apologized. Said she'd been so desperate for approval, for money, for security, that she'd lost herself. We talked for 2 hours. It was awkward and emotional and difficult, but it was real. She asked if maybe we could try to rebuild some kind of relationship. Slowly. I said maybe. We'd see. My mother reached out in November, sent an email. The divorce was finalized. She was living in a condo downtown Chicago. She admitted the competition had been cruel and born from her and Dad's own dysfunction. She asked if I could forgive her someday. I wrote back, maybe, but not yet. I need time. Craig never apologized. His lawsuit against Dad was still ongoing. Probably would be for years. I accepted I might never have a relationship with him again. Some damage can't be repaired. Dad sent me one letter, handwritten, said he was sorry for everything, that he'd been trying to control his legacy and instead destroyed it, that he understood if I never wanted to speak to him again. I didn't respond, wasn't ready, but I did keep visiting Caleb. Once a month, I'd fly or drive to Indiana. We'd go to games, movies, just hang out. He told me about school, about girls he liked, about his basketball team. I told him about New York, about work, about life. We were building something. Not replacing what either of us lost, but creating something new. Something that wasn't based on inheritance or competition, or proving worth. Just two brothers getting to know each other. One Saturday in December, I was video chatting with Caleb from my apartment. He was asking advice about high school classes, whether he should take advanced physics or chemistry. After we hung up, I sat there looking at the New York skyline outside my window. I thought about everything that happened, the competition, the sabotage, the betrayals, the exposure, the destruction. I'd spent 6 months fighting to be chosen by people who'd made love conditional. Fighting to win a competition that was toxic from the start. And I'd lost that fight spectacularly. But in losing, I'd found something more important. I'd learned who I am when everything's stripped away. Learned that fighting dirty makes you just as toxic as the people you're fighting. Found a real brother in the ruins of a fake family. Escaped a system that would have poisoned me forever. I opened my laptop and started writing. Not an article this time. Just a journal entry. For myself, I spent 6 months fighting to be chosen by people who made love conditional. I lost that fight. But I chose myself. And that's the only victory that ever mattered. I closed the laptop and smiled. For the first time in over a year, I felt okay. Actually okay. Not because I won. Not because I got money or approval or vindication, but because I was finally free. Spring arrived in New York with that particular energy that makes the city feel alive. I'd been at the marketing agency for 8 months now. Built a good reputation. Clients specifically requested to work with me. Turned out years of navigating toxic family dynamics made me pretty good at understanding authentic human connection. Who knew? Caleb was finishing freshman year of high school. We talked every week, visited every month. He'd gotten taller, more confident. Still the same good kid, but growing into himself. He'd decided on engineering for sure, already talking about colleges. Diane told me he talked about me to his friends. My brother Dante in New York. Like it was the most normal thing in the world. Maybe it was. Amanda and I had rebuilt something resembling a sibling relationship. Slow progress. Lots of therapy on both sides. We video chatted every couple weeks. She was doing better in LA, working in marketing too, coincidentally. We traded industry gossip, compared notes on clients. Sometimes we talked about the family stuff. Sometimes we didn't. Mom and I exchanged emails occasionally. Surface level still. How's work? How's the weather? Baby steps. She'd sold the Naperville house, moved to a smaller place in the city. Started volunteering at an art museum. She seemed different. Smaller somehow, but maybe more honest. Dad I hadn't talked to. His letter sat in my desk drawer, unopened for months. I finally read it in March. It was brief. Apologetic. Said he'd been so obsessed with legacy and control that he'd forgotten what actually mattered, that he was seeing a therapist. That the business was probably going to be sold to pay for Craig's settlement. That he deserved it. He didn't ask for forgiveness, just said he hoped someday I'd be okay. I wrote back. One line, I'm getting there. Sent it before I could overthink it. Craig I'd completely accepted as a loss. Some relationships can't survive what we did to each other. Last I heard through Amanda, he was dealing with his own fallout. The lawsuit had damaged his reputation. His real estate business was struggling. His wife Lauren had apparently had enough of his intensity and filed for separation. Karma, or consequences, or just life. Hard to say. But here's what I learned through all of it. What I wish I could go back and tell myself on that Thanksgiving, when this all started. You can't win a rigged game. My parents created a competition that was toxic at its core. The only winning move was not to play. I just didn't realize that until I'd already destroyed everything trying to win. The people who make you compete for their love were never going to truly love you anyway. Real love isn't conditional. It's not earned through success or achievement. It's just given. And if someone withholds it until you prove yourself, that's not love. That's manipulation. Fighting dirty makes you dirty. Craig sabotaged me, so I exposed Dad's secrets. An eye for an eye leaves everyone blind. I thought I was fighting back. I was really just becoming the same kind of person who'd hurt me. Sometimes losing everything is how you discover what actually matters. I lost my job, my business, my family, my reputation. And in that wreckage, I found myself. Found Caleb. Found a path forward that wasn't built on other people's approval. You can't control how people treat you, but you can control who you become in response. My parents treated us like chess pieces. Craig treated relationships like warfare. I could have become bitter and vengeful forever. Instead, I chose to learn and grow. That choice made all the difference. Walking away from dysfunction is its own form of triumph. Society tells us family is everything. You have to stick together no matter what. But sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is leave. Not out of spite. Out of self-preservation. Late April, I flew to Indiana for Caleb's birthday, 14 turning 15. Diane threw a party at their house. His basketball team showed up. Some school friends. Diane's boyfriend, a nice guy named Marcus who worked in construction. I brought Caleb a microscope he'd been wanting. His face lit up like Christmas morning. After the party, we sat on Diane's back porch, just the two of us. He was eating leftover cake. "You ever talk to your dad? Like, our dad?" he asked. Sent him one email. "That's it. You think you'll ever have a real relationship with him?" I thought about it. I don't know. Maybe someday. But I don't need it anymore. I used to think I needed his approval to be okay. Turns out, I was wrong. Caleb nodded. Mom says he wants to meet me. Like, properly meet me. Introduce himself. How do you feel about that? Weird. He's been paying Mom my whole life but never actually wanted to be my dad. Now suddenly he does? Seems fake. It might be. Or he might genuinely regret his choices. Hard to know. But here's what I learned. You don't owe him anything. Not forgiveness, not a relationship, not even a conversation. Whatever you decide, make it about what you need, not what he wants. He looked at me. Is that what you did? Eventually. Took me a while to figure it out. He finished his cake. I'm glad we're brothers, though. Like, real brothers. Not just DNA. Something in my chest tightened. Good tight. Me too, kid. Me too. Flying back to New York that night, I thought about how strange life is. How pain can crack you open and reveal spaces for new things to grow. How sometimes the family you make matters more than the family you're born into. I'd lost the inheritance competition. Lost spectacularly, publicly, painfully. But I'd gained Caleb. Gained self-knowledge. Gained freedom from a toxic system. Gained a career I actually loved. Built on honesty instead of performance. I'd gained myself back. At the marketing agency, my boss Rachel called me into her office in May. We want to expand your role. Make you creative director. It's a big jump, but you've earned it. You make our work better. More human. That's valuable. It came with a raise, $90,000, more responsibility, a team to lead. I accepted, not because I needed to prove anything, just because it felt right. June. I got an unexpected package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a note from my father. The business sold. After legal fees and settlements, there's not much left. But you deserved something. Not because of the competition. Because you're my son, and I failed you. I'm sorry. I stared at the check for a long time. $50,000 wouldn't change my life now. I was stable, earning good money, building something real. But it was something. An acknowledgement. An apology in material form. I deposited it. Put it in savings. Figured maybe I'd use it to help Caleb with college someday. Or help Amanda when she needed it. Or just keep it as an emergency fund. It didn't fix anything, but it was closure of a kind. Amanda called me in July. She'd gotten engaged. To a guy named Scott, worked in tech. She was happy, really happy. Asked if I'd come to the wedding in October. You sure? After everything? You're my brother, Dante. Yeah, I'm sure. I went to the wedding. Small ceremony in Malibu. Amanda looked beautiful. Mom was there, cried during the vows. Dad wasn't invited. Craig wasn't either. Amanda pulled me aside at the reception. Thank you for coming, and for not giving up on me. I know I made it hard. We all made it hard, but we're still here. That counts for something. She hugged me. Yeah, it does. Standing there at my sister's wedding, drinking overpriced champagne, watching her dance with her new husband. I felt something settle in my chest. Peace? Maybe. Acceptance. Our family would never be what it was. Too much damage, too many betrayals. But we were building something new from the pieces. Smaller, more honest, more intentional. Not perfect, but real. I kept writing. Not articles, just for myself. Processing everything I'd learned. About success and failure. About family and identity. About what makes a life worth living. The core lesson kept coming back to the same thing. The only approval that matters is your own. The only success that counts is becoming the person you want to be. Everything else is noise. My parents tried to make us compete for their love. They thought they were teaching us about success and merit and achievement. Instead, they taught us about the poison of conditional love. About how easily relationships crumble when you treat them like transactions. About how legacy means nothing if you destroy the people who should carry it forward. I didn't win their competition, but I won something more important. I won my self-respect. I won authentic relationships. I won freedom from needing to prove my worth to people who were never going to truly see me anyway. Some victories look like losses from the outside. But standing in my New York apartment in late December, video chatting with Caleb about his winter break, planning our next visit, I knew the truth. I'd spent 6 months fighting to be chosen by people who made love conditional. I lost that fight, but I chose myself. I chose honesty over manipulation. I chose real relationships over transactional ones. I chose to become better rather than bitter. And that, it turns out, was the only victory that ever mattered. If you've ever felt like you're not enough, like you have to earn love through achievement or performance, let me tell you something. You don't. You're enough just as you are. The people who make you prove your worth aren't your people. Find the ones who see your value without you having to fight for it. Let go of rigged games. Walk away from toxic systems. Choose yourself. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, and the most important. I'm Dante. I lost everything and found myself, and I wouldn't change a thing. So what about you? Have you ever been in a situation where family or relationships felt like a competition? Where love seemed conditional on success or achievement? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and maybe helps someone who needs to hear this message today. And if you want to hear more stories about overcoming toxic relationships, family dynamics, and finding yourself in the wreckage, subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Someone dealing with difficult family situations. Someone trying to figure out their own path. Sometimes knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story, for letting me be vulnerable about the hardest period of my life. I hope it gave you something valuable. Take care of yourselves, choose yourself, and remember, The only approval you need is your own.